Let's go Ravens! The atmosphere surrounding the Baltimore Ravens feels different right now, and some of the strongest evidence is coming directly from the players themselves. Over the last few days, minicamp wrapped up, and several key figures spoke about what they have been experiencing inside the building. What they shared paints a picture of a team that is embracing change, adapting to new coaching, and preparing for what could be one of the most intriguing seasons in recent memory. But before we continue, make sure you've already clicked the like button if you're a true Baltimore Ravens fan. And if you're feeling optimistic about the future of this team, leave a comment below saying, "Go Ravens! The future is bright!" I'm curious to see how many members of Ravens flock are excited about what they're hearing coming out of Baltimore right now. One of the biggest stories to emerge from minicamp revolves around the relationship between Lamar Jackson and the new offensive system. According to Lamar, this offense is completely different from what he has been used to. He explained that there is a lot of new terminology and that very little carried over from previous systems. Rather than viewing that as a problem, Lamar sounded genuinely excited about the challenge. In fact, he described the offense as explosive and even called aspects of it mind-blowing because of Declan Doyle's creativity and attention to detail. That alone should grab the attention of Ravens fans. When one of the most important players on the roster talks about being challenged, that's significant. Lamar openly acknowledged that he is still learning and adapting. He spoke about taking strides in the right direction and emphasized how detailed the coaching has been throughout the process. According to him, everyone appears locked in and fully invested in making this offense work. What makes this even more interesting is the way Lamar described Declan Doyle's coaching style. There was a moment during practice when Lamar made a mistake on a play. He explained that Doyle immediately addressed it. Lamar actually laughed while telling the story, saying he wasn't used to that kind of coaching. But he also made it very clear that he appreciated it. He repeatedly stressed that Doyle was simply doing his job as a coach. For Ravens fans, that's a fascinating development. The impression being created is that this coaching staff is not afraid to demand excellence, regardless of who is standing on the field. And according to Lamar, that level of accountability is something he welcomes because he believes it helps everyone improve. Another player who offered valuable insight was Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton was asked about several changes happening within the organization, particularly the arrival of Mike Mickens. What stood out from Hamilton's comments was the emphasis on technique. He explained that Mickens focuses heavily on fundamentals and doing things the correct way, not simply doing the right assignment. Hamilton described the transition as seamless and praised the approach being taken by the defensive staff. Perhaps even more exciting was what Hamilton had to say about Lamar Jackson. According to Hamilton, Lamar still looks exactly like the player Ravens fans have watched for years. He joked that Lamar continues moving around the field like he did during his Louisville days and said he still looks like a two-time MVP. Hamilton also mentioned that there are numerous players making plays throughout the offense, creating an environment that feels fresh and exciting. That comment shouldn't be overlooked, because whenever teammates begin talking about energy, excitement, and players making plays across the roster, it usually signals confidence within the locker room. There was another important topic discussed during minicamp as well: the center competition. Right now, it appears to be one of the most closely watched battles on the roster. Danny Pinter and Jovan Gwynn were specifically mentioned as players competing for the role. Jesse Minter described the competition as balanced and indicated that more clarity may come once the pads go on during training camp. He also noted that Corey Bullock is expected to return fully healthy and re-enter the competition. That means one of the biggest questions on the roster remains unanswered: who will ultimately emerge as the starting center? And with training camp approaching, that battle could become one of the most important storylines to follow. Meanwhile, another player who generated attention was Tyler Loop. Loop spoke about moving on from a missed kick and explained his mentality as a kicker. What stood out was his ability to separate emotion from performance. He described kicking as a factual position: either the kick goes through or it doesn't. According to Loop, the key is learning from mistakes while maintaining confidence and moving forward. His comments revealed a player who appears focused on growth rather than dwelling on the past. And finally, Roger Rosengarten provided some fascinating insight into the direction of the offensive line. Rosengarten spoke highly of the coaching staff and explained why he believes the new system fits his strengths. He highlighted the emphasis on speed off the ball, toughness, effort, and finishing plays. According to Rosengarten, the approach being implemented by the coaching staff aligns extremely well with his skill set and could allow him to showcase his abilities even more effectively. Taken together, all of these comments point toward a common theme: change. Not chaotic change. Not dramatic change. Purposeful change. A new offensive system. New coaching approaches. New competition. New ideas. And based on what players are saying, there appears to be genuine excitement surrounding all of it. The most intriguing part is that we're still only talking about minicamp. Training camp hasn't started. The pads haven't come on. The real battles haven't fully begun. Yet multiple players are already describing an environment filled with energy, accountability, learning, and opportunity. And that raises a fascinating question for Ravens fans. What makes all of this even more exciting, Ravens fans, is that there seems to be a common thread running through nearly every player interview coming out of minicamp. Energy. Not just excitement about football. Not just excitement about a new season. But excitement about the people leading this team. The more players talk, the more you hear similar themes repeated over and over again. Attention to detail. Communication. Technique. Accountability. Competition. Those words keep appearing throughout these conversations. And honestly, that's probably what should stand out most to Ravens fans right now. Because nobody is talking about shortcuts. Nobody is talking about taking it easy. Nobody is talking about relying on past success. Instead, the message seems to be that everybody is starting over. Everybody is learning. Everybody is adapting. Everybody is competing. When Kyle Hamilton discussed Mike Mickens, one thing that jumped off the page was the emphasis on technique. Hamilton explained that Mickens isn't just focused on making sure players know where to line up. He's focused on making sure they execute correctly once they get there. That may sound like a small detail, but often, small details create big differences, especially when you're talking about NFL football. A slightly better angle, a slightly quicker reaction, a slightly cleaner technique. Those things can completely change outcomes on Sundays. The same idea appears to be carrying over to the offensive side as well. Lamar Jackson repeatedly described how much information is being thrown at players right now. A new system, new terminology, new concepts, new responsibilities. And rather than sounding overwhelmed, Lamar sounded energized by the challenge. That should be encouraging for Ravens fans. Because when your quarterback is embracing change instead of resisting it, that's usually a very positive sign. Especially when we're talking about a player who already has years of experience and success behind him. Another fascinating part of this discussion is how much uncertainty still exists. And surprisingly, that uncertainty might actually be one of the most exciting parts. Think about it. Do we know exactly what Declan Doyle's offense will look like? No. Do we know exactly how targets will be distributed? No. Do we know who will ultimately win the center competition? No. Do we know exactly how all these new coaching philosophies will translate once games begin? No. But that's exactly what makes this offseason so intriguing. There are so many unanswered questions. And every one of those questions represents an opportunity for someone to emerge. An opportunity for someone to surprise people. An opportunity for someone to take a major step forward. The offensive line may be one of the best examples of that. Roger Rosengarten spoke with tremendous confidence about how well this new approach fits his strengths. The emphasis on speed, effort, toughness, and finishing appears to align naturally with the way he wants to play. Now imagine if multiple offensive linemen feel the same way. Imagine if the system truly maximizes what those players do best. That could have a ripple effect throughout the entire offense. Better protection, better run blocking, more consistency, more explosive opportunities. And when you combine that possibility with Lamar Jackson's excitement about the offense, it's easy